Okay, I think we're live, but let me make sure that we are live. Uh, can everyone see us?
Tap into the chat.
Let's see. Join. Hi, everyone. Yes. Oh my God. Jesus, how is this coming for you?
We're good. It's just delayed.
Okay. Okay, let me see how this works.
Yeah, no, we're good. There's just a delay. There's like a 2 to 3 second delay, I think. So
Okay, so
just don't check the link then, because then if you do, it's gonna throw you off.
okay, all right.
Yeah. We'll just stick to our lives. I'm pretty sure the people that are tuning in, I think they can hear us. There's about 6 or 7 people in the chat when I saw, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we should start. What do you think?
Yep. Aside technical difficulties aside, we are all here. So
I think
excited to
we're
join.
good. It's just like this is weird. Like, yeah, but I think we're coming through. I think everything is fine. Can you say that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I hope everyone can hear us and everyone can see us. And yeah, I think we're good. So let me see. I see some comments here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Soribel. This is my channel. I'm streaming through LinkedIn and YouTube. I'm here with Jesus, not Jesus, Jesus Vidaurri,
Yep.
uh, who is a former Fed himself and is a recruiter who works for himself now. So he's able to speak freely about the job market, this hot mess of a job market. I am a Fed myself, and I'm very curious to hear what he has to say. I'm really excited to have everyone here. I know that this is a tough time for most people, and you probably have the same questions I have. Who the hell is hiring? So we're not going to beat around the bush. We're going straight into this. And Jesus, I want you to introduce yourself.
Sure.
And then I want you to answer the question for me and for us. Jesus, please, who the hell is hiring? Take it away, take the wheel.
Love it, love it. First of all, I'm sure that title was very catchy and attention grabbing when she did the promo. I know it definitely caught my eye when she posted that. So, yeah, super excited to be here. Again, as she mentioned, my name is Jesus Vidaurri. I am the founder and CEO of Vita Talent Solutions, which is an HR and talent consulting firm. So I do both recruiting, and I also advise startups and small businesses on how to build up their recruiting process and using AI tools, and really just using best practices on building a recruiting operations for companies that need it. So think of it as like fractional HR or fractional recruiting. Um, as Soribel mentioned, I also used to be I am a former Fed, so I used to work for the U.S. Digital Service. So I was at the White House for about 3.5 years. And prior to that, I was in Fortune 100. So I worked for a large technology distribution company for a few years. And prior to that, I worked in staffing. So I was working for a staffing agency, one of the largest in the country, for about 2 to 3 years. So all collectively, I've been in the game for at least a decade now. So I think I know what I'm talking about. At least I hope I do. Um, so, but yeah, so this is a huge passion of mine. And again, most of my career has been spent recruiting technology professionals. So everything from data scientists to cybersecurity to software engineers, designers, product, you name it. And now all the emerging and deep tech stuff that we're seeing today. Um, so to the question, right? Who the hell is hiring? And I will know, like everything I say, again, it is my own opinion, my own perspective as somebody who's been in the game for a long time and who's has seen kind of the ebbs and flows of not just on the candidate side, but also on the internal side, right? The recruiter side, the HR side, what we're seeing. So I'll be able to share a perspective that I hope is a bit refreshing and unique than what most people are used to saying or what what you're used to hearing. Um, I think the short answer to that is that you'll be surprised what places are hiring.
Please, please.
Yeah. So, when I was going through the prep with Sodi Bell, I mentioned to her that uh, I think that the days of traditional job searching are long gone. I know that sounds controversial, but I'm not saying that you shouldn't apply to jobs that you see today. Like that doesn't mean you don't go to LinkedIn or Indeed or Glassdoor or insert your job application site here. But I will say that the traditional way of looking at the job search and looking at traditional companies, which obviously for the most part, they're the ones who have the power in the market, right? They have the branding power, they have the marketing power to talk to say that they have all these jobs open. When in reality, you go, you apply, you've got a spreadsheet of 500 jobs in your Google tracker, and like none of them are calling you back. Um, and I think right now it's particularly interesting because we have so many things going on. I mean, you have obviously address the first one, which is AI, who's been introduced into the market that is really just massively shifting both how the candidates look at the job market as well as the internal side, right? How recruiters are even managing the influx of applications, and we'll get into fake applications as well and all that other stuff because it's pretty crazy what I've seen and what the stories that I've heard from other recruiters as well. And hopefully that sheds some light on like what we're seeing and why it's so troublesome to even get through applications today. I mean, it's even hard for us to be like, wow, okay, we just posted this job yesterday. It's already got 200 applications. Like, how am I going to go through all that? So, aside from what I was mentioning earlier, right now, I think the way of looking at companies, you have to really shift that a little bit. You have to look at non-traditional roles out there, non-traditional companies. Again, most people when they look at a job, especially, and I'll use tech as an example, when you're a technologist, think about the first companies you're going to go and search for: Google, Facebook, uh, Amazon, Microsoft, right? I mean, Salesforce, right? Like those are companies that the first thing you do is you go to their websites because the brand is so powerful, right? You go to Apple, you go to all these different companies because they have good tech shops. But you may have never even considered that there's smaller businesses and smaller companies out there that with a little bit of research or non-traditional job boards, you may be able to find those opportunities. Now, on the flip side, there are also startups. I know in the past, startups have always been controversial because they're like, well, it's very risky. How long do they have? What kind of bandwidth do they have? What kind of runway? And where do you even find their jobs? Well, nowadays there's different ways to get in front of those types of employers, right? The startups and the folks who are actually offering salaries, not just equity. So I'm gonna put that out there. So there are startups that will offer you just equity. Of course, like people need a paycheck, so you can't just like take equity and then not have something coming in steady. But there's a lot of companies, especially right now, and this is where I spend most of my time is helping startups and small businesses that are in the startup space, and it is so unique right now because I mean you have companies that are making close to 1 million MRR, which is monthly revenue, right? That's kind of wild when you think about it. And most of these companies have just been founded as of like the start of this year or late last year. I know there are some out there that are already at billion-dollar valuations, and that's because of AI. A huge part of that is because of AI, right? They're able to build AI native companies from the bottom up, and they're beating out companies like Google and OpenAI and Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they're building on top of their platforms, but when you think about like big companies, when they want to inject new tools and new things into their environment, it takes them a lot because they have to look at, okay, if we put something new in, what's going to break. Whereas companies that are starting from the ground up, they're saying, well, we don't have nothing to stand on, so let's just build what we want from the very get. Um, and so anyway, I to end on that note, I mean, I think you have to really look at places that you may not typically be looking at. There's rocks that have been unturned, and I'll tell you that from experience, as somebody who's kind of seen every industry, right? I mean, I've been in the startup space, I've been in private sector, public sector. I've recruited for fintech, for SaaS, for healthcare. I mean, you really have to think, okay, what do I want to do as a job seeker? First of all, that's the number one thing you got to figure out is what do I want to do next, or what am I doing now? Um, and the next is, create a hot list of, where would I want to go? What kind of work would I want to do? And then nowadays we have a very good friend that I like to call ChatGPT, that you could do so much research with. I mean, you could quite literally just say, here's the role I'm looking for. Here's the type of industry it is. Here's what I would like to do. Can you find me the top 10, 20 companies that are doing this work? It may throw Microsoft or Google in there, but you may be surprised. They might throw some other companies you're like, I have never heard of this company. And then it'll take you straight to their job board. And that's the power of, the AI on the flip side, right? That we can be using as job seekers. So anyway, I'll stop right there. I can ramble, so stop me. But yes, I that we can probably start there and maybe set the tone as we go along.
Jesus, your question was, I mean, your answer was great. It was long because now every time you said something, my brain goes into 5 different directions. And I was even taking notes here because I have a list of questions that I want to ask you, but then I'm like, wait, he said this, he said that. So I think we're going to need more than an hour, and I'm happy to do a second part if
Yeah.
people are interested, if people end up enjoying this. But okay, let me go back to my little script, and then we will see what people are interested in. So my second question is, what's the real reason resumes are getting ignored?
Mm,
Is it AI screening, or are companies just not actually hiring despite posting jobs, right?
yeah.
Um, so I want you to address the other side, like the recruiter side of things, because we hate recruiters, right? Am I right? We hate recruiters, but I also have some sympathy. And you mentioned, like, there's bad applicants out there, there's bad actors, and then they're flooded. So I want to be sympathetic to them as well. So please, if you can address why are resumes that are perfect getting ignored, what is it? And then I'll ask you follow-up questions.
Yeah. So I mentioned to you on our pre-call about this is that I actually put a video out there. So I do have a YouTube channel myself. Shameless plug.
Yeah,
So if
I
any,
will add it to the
yeah.
yeah.
So I actually just dropped a video. I think it was last week, the week before, where I actually talked about this, right? Where from a job seeker's perspective, why is it that we're not hearing back? And trust me, like I've been on the side of myself. I got laid off in February, right? I was part of the group of former feds that was not extended in their terms. And I was job seeking for a while before I decided to start my own thing. Um, and so, as somebody who's like was searching, or maybe, I guess I'm still kind of technically looking for full-time roles while I build the business. But um, it is a very different market than have seen it for the last 10 years that I've been doing this. And as somebody who's been on the inside, I can tell you, like even right now, like I recruit for a few companies, and uh, I mean, I post like the other day, I posted a job. I mean, I got 300, 400 resumes in a matter of like 30 minutes, um, from LinkedIn, right? It was a LinkedIn job post. I actually stopped posting on LinkedIn, like jobs, because it's just insane. And I would argue that half of them are fake profiles. I like, I literally looked through them and they had like one or two connections, or they didn't have a picture, and it's like, as a recruiter, I'm like, wow, like, especially when you're a smaller company who doesn't have the resources to build your own career page and have all this like employer branding and go out to conferences and do all these things to find real people. If you're just using online platforms to find your people and you're faced with that, now think about it from the perspective of a small business who also doesn't have a recruiting team. They have one person, maybe it's a 50-person company, half of them are sales, some of them are marketing, some of them are legal operations, and then the technologists, and they got one HR person that's got to look through 500 resumes for 10 different jobs, right? You're looking at 5,000 resumes now. So, and they don't have the tools to do the work, right? They're using Google spreadsheets, they're using Microsoft Word. I don't know. It's crazy. I've talked to some HR people. I'm like, how do you even do this? I would spend the money all day to get a tool that can help organize all of this. So that's what we're faced with, right? And that's just like me setting the landscape as a recruiter. Not all teams, right? Obviously, you got armies like Google, who has like 100,000 of recruiters. 100 is probably like that's that's oversimplifying it, but I mean, that's part of the problem, right? Is you're being overflooded with just junk. Um, and I will say that I don't think that you know I mean, I've gotten this question a lot from job seekers. It's like, should I still apply? Should I still submit my resume? Um, just do it. It's not going to hurt you, especially if you have one that's carved out that looks good. Have your spreadsheet, track those jobs. But I would tell you right now, we'll go into this. I think there's another question later on in the conversation here that we talk about, like what are specific tactics. But you really got to get out there. You got to get in front of the people. And that's the best way. I mean, even referrals. If you get a referral to a company, great, but oftentimes there's just so many applicants that, like, if you're not the right fit, even if you're a referral, they're not going to give you the job. The other piece that I think maybe some people have heard or not is, what's the time window, right? Like, honestly, between that 24 to 48 hour time window is critical. There's a lot of companies out there that actually have job alerts that will say, like, this job just got released, and so you sign up, you subscribe, and you kind of get those releases, so that you can apply within that 24 to 48 hour window. And the last thing I'll leave you with there is that, despite like all the AI stuff, and just like the craziness that we're seeing from both job seekers, for both job seekers and for recruiters, is that the human connection is going to be the most important part about all of this. So whether that means that you can afford to go to a conference or go to maybe one of your local event meetups, right, and connect with people there in your city, or like here today, right? We're joining this live. There's people in the comment section. Connect with each one of them, right? Send them a message afterwards. Hey, we were on that call together. I saw we both are in the same space. Or maybe, hey, you're doing a job that I would love to do. Are you guys hiring, right? Like, these are the types of engagements that AI can't give us, right? Or when we're submitting blindly to postings, we're just shooting it in the dark and hoping for the best. So anyway, those are some points that I'll leave there, but I know we have more questions as we go along that are related to this topic.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out my script and I'm gonna start answering people's questions because they're here for this, right? So let's do that. And Brian Flores is asking, what can a candidate do in order to stand out from the rest in such a competitive market? So
yeah,
you've addressed some of it, but if you have any other thoughts, please go ahead and let us know. What can we do to stand out?
Yeah. First of all, Brian, thanks for tuning in. Shout out to the homie. He's from Tampa. That's where I'm from, by the way. I'm from Tampa, Florida. So for any of my Florida folks, that's where I'm from. Yeah, this is a tough question because it does vary depending on industry. I mean, that's the other thing. I've recruited sales and finance people and legal people before as well. Not where I typically spend most of my time, but I have seen that. So for non-generic roles, I would say for non-technical roles, I would say that think about your industry. What sets you apart in those industries? If it's sales, do you have a pitch deck? Do you have something that is like, some quick statistics about the number of sales that you've made, the revenue you generated for companies, like those types of things, right? If you're finance, can you pull together PowerPoint decks of the financial analysis that you've done for a big company? Maybe use some demo data. You don't have to like use the actual data of a particular company, but like those things, having them ready. Because I mean, of course, you want to have a resume, you want to have a cover letter. I would argue that nowadays it's easier to build your own website. So if you can do that, there's tools out there. Of course, I'm a pitch AI tools all day. So You mean there's tools like Lovable and Cursor and all these like low code, no code tools that you can literally hop on, learn, and build your own like personal resume website type thing that looks extremely professional in a matter of a week, which is crazy. I mean, before you'd have to hire a developer to do that for you, or get somebody on Fiverr or Upwork to do that for you. Now you can do it yourself. So resume, cover letter, you know, if you can get your own personal profile online, great. Um, I'm going to talk about LinkedIn all day. Like I know some people are like, LinkedIn, it's flooded, this, and that. It's really all we got. I mean, you're not going to pitch yourself
That is
to,
true.
you're not going to pitch yourself on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook unless you're a content creator and that's what you're doing. Great. But, you know, LinkedIn is really like our single source of truth for, you know, professionals. And there's others out there. Like you could probably lean on Substack or something else like YouTube. If you're, you know, if you're an expert in a field and you feel comfortable on camera, you know, displaying all that, like all those things will help you, right? Especially if you're a subject matter expert in a particular area. Now for my technical folks, if you're a software engineer, you have to have a GitHub. You have to show your work. This is where like, you know, if you do have a personal website, you show your work there, right? If you're a designer, have a portfolio, right? Like these are things that are extremely important for you to just have off the cuff in the case that you get asked, and those things will make you stand out. But um, yeah, I mean, like in terms of like, in order to stand out from the rest of the crowd, I'll tell you, if you're doing any of the things that I just mentioned, you're already probably above 50% of the people that are not doing that, right? Um, so now it's just a matter of the stuff that you can't just like build and show people. It is you got to get out there, you got to talk to real humans, and not just sit behind the screen and submit resumes. That's just not going to work. So that would be my long-winded response to Brian's question around, and I think there was a few questions here. I think there was a question from Katie about, you know, cover letters and that kind of thing. You know, I mentioned earlier, just do it. Like that one, and again, this is going to sound controversial. Like I would use AI for that. You know, because for you to customize a cover letter for 500 jobs, I
Yeah.
mean, if employers are going to knock you for that, quite frankly, like me as a person, like I work with the companies. If I got a client that says I don't want anybody using AI tools, but yeah, they're the ones using AI, I'm like, that's hella hypocritical. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Okay, so I'm really excited because I'm seeing a comment from Matt Spalding. I'm excited because he's doing uh, God's work right up with their Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, he's looking at ghost jobs and he's putting it out there. Like, so everyone should follow him and look at the work that he's doing. So I want to combine Matt's question to, I think, Salim ask another question. How do you recognize and filter
Mm,
fake jobs and fake recruiters? And then I'm going to combine that question with what can you tell us in general about ghost jobs? So anything you can
mhm.
share with us about that. Um, and then I will follow up with Matt's question, like how do you decide who is actually qualified as a recruiter?
Yeah.
So, it's a two-part question. How do you recognize and filter fake jobs and fake recruiters, which I have been the victim of myself, and talk about ghost jobs, and then I'll come back with Matt's question.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough, right? It's like, how do you identify whether someone's laundering money? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'll hit on the jobs portion first, and then I'll go to Matt's side. You know, on the job seeker part or applicants part. Um, I mean, me personally, I always do like a double, triple check. Right? Is this job being posted anywhere else? Is it just on this platform? Is it on the careers page? That's the first piece of research I'm going to do. I know it sounds painful, it sounds cumbersome to do that for X number of jobs that you might be looking at. But I mean, and here's the scary part. I mean, the worst thing you want to do is set. I mean, at the end of the day, your resume is PII, right? So if somebody has your email, your address, they can spoof you, they can dox you. Like those things are scary. So just be very careful. That's why it is really important to like double check, triple check where you're submitting your resume to. Um, if they're asking you for a home address, don't put it down. If it has an asterisk, like that's just my own personal thing because I'm very hypercritical about my privacy. Um, so like do your homework in terms of, is this job existing anywhere else or is it just on this platform? The other thing is, and this one is like it's a hit or miss, but that's like verify with resources at those companies, right? Like reach out to the recruiter. Hey, I saw this job. Wondering, would love to I submitted my application to it, or hey, I would like to be considered for this role. Here's why I think I'm qualified. If they come back to you and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, like that, that role's already been filled, or that's not actually our company. Like that would be some ways that you can, kind of suss that out and figure out whether those jobs are fake or real, that kind of thing. But it is tough. I mean, you just really got to do your homework, do your due diligence, and you know, it's a tough one. Hopefully there are some solutions that I think are coming out, that can help stop some of the AI generated stuff. Like there are tools that are being built now that I've actually seen firsthand from some stealth companies and others that I'm hoping this is part of that solution. Um, on the applicant side, right, to Matt's question, that's a tough one. If I post a job and I get 1,000 AI generated resumes that are all tailored to this JD, how do I decide who's actually qualified? Man, I won't know until I get on the phone with somebody, right? I mean, I'll tell you, me personally, as somebody who finds candidates for other clients, for companies that are hiring, I have a phone call with every single person I'm before I even put them in the front of the client. So I don't just get your resume and then like blindly send it to the client. I'm having a call with you first, especially today in this world where you can easily do some deep fake and or have some other AI generated tool create your face and answer the questions for me. I mean, I've figured out some methods to like suss out any AI generated stuff. It's a whole other topic. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's not just about the JD because the JD is half of it. I mean, JDs only are as good as how they're written, right? So even if somebody meets all the requirements, but let's say my client says that, hey, I really need them to have grit, and like you can kind of see that through the startups that they've been a part of before, or I need somebody who's been on the ground game pre-seed, that kind of stuff, or I need somebody who's been in fintech for 20 years, right? Like the AI may not tell you that because they're basing it off of what they see on the job description. But if the job description doesn't say, 10 years of fintech experience, right? That's something that the client told me. Okay, well then I'm going to eliminate, candidates that don't seem to have like a big background in fintech. So like again, it's difficult, right? It's a case by case basis. It depends on the job you're working on. I mean, if you have the tools within your own environment, like I know there's tools out there like GemAI that can like rate candidates. So even if you had 1,000 candidates that were all qualified, it would still give you, here are the top 10%. Okay, great. Then I'll focus on the top 10%, and then I'll take a look at the other ones as I get closer and closer. But it is going to be a numbers game, and I'm going to, at least somebody for like myself, if I had 1,000 resumes and like that tool gave me the top 10%, that means I'm only going to be looking through 100. More than likely I'm going to start chronologically, right? Who were the first ones that came in that are in that top 10%, and then go from there, start screening, do what I can to kind of get through that that load of resumes. So
okay, thank you for that thorough answer. I want to kind of throw you a curveball here and get to the meat of how candidates should start approaching things. So the first one is, which industries are hiring, but we job seekers are completely overlooking these industries? And where should people be looking that they're not looking at right now?
You mean in terms of jobs or skills?
Jobs and job boards, and then
Jobs
skills
and job
I'm
boards.
going to ask afterwards. But which industries aren't actually hiring? Because everyone is just focused on big tech. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are other industries that are not tech. So what industries are actually hiring, but we are not thinking about them? And then where should people be looking other than LinkedIn? I mean, we talked a little bit about that, but
Yeah.
like, what are some things that are not so obvious?
Mm. So I'll answer your first question. Um, and I would say right now, look at the industries that are ripe for disruption because of AI. So like think like legal, think HR, think accounting. And I'm still talking about tech here a little bit because those will be ripe for automation. Unfortunately, I know most people don't want to hear that. As a recruiter myself, I mean, part of my job will be automated, but what I'm doing here is I'm focusing on the human side of the connection. The AI still can't talk to candidates the way I can and infer different situations. It's not there yet. Maybe one day, but we're still, I think, even too far from that. We need to solve the problem of quantum first, so to get to that point. Um, but on the flip side, I think the jobs that are really hot right now, and actually, I'm gonna see if I can find it. I was like trying to like scrape my LinkedIn yesterday to see if I could come across the post again, but it was a breakdown of, and it was in percentages of different types of roles, and at the very top, it was roles that were right for disruption through automation, and so of course it's all like anything that has to do with like repetitive tasks and actions or even creative stuff, which is crazy, right? Like mean, you got these tools where you can do text to video, text to image. So like designers, content creators, like that kind of stuff is going to be kind of in the middle. But at the very bottom were people that, I mean, I think it was like a 10 to 20% chance that they would be disrupted by AI, meaning that they are uh, less less affected by the changes in the market. And those were like healthcare workers, right? So like people that deal with patients, mental health, physical, biology, sciences, chemistry, the arts, right? So not necessarily musicians. Musicians are that's also a little bit controversial because I mean, if you guys heard about the Spotify story where they just created their own song through AI and then it got like, a bunch of hits. That one's a little tough, but people who can like do art, that kind of thing, the more cultural side of things, and really like being in front of people and dealing with people, those jobs will be much harder to be replaced by AI. The other ones that I will say, and this has been like a big upward trend in demand, has been the trade jobs. I think I saw somebody put it earlier in the chat. Don't worry, I was definitely going to hit on that. So like your electricians, your plumbers, your HVAC people. I mean, shoot, even now, I mean, like people who are tending, to agriculture, like those kinds of things. I mean, you can't do that, right? Robotics have definitely not caught up to that, and they won't catch up until one we can figure out how to get more of the products that we need to build robotics. But then you also got to inject the automation into the robotics to do the things that you need to do. So I think we're at least a decade or two away from trade jobs going anywhere. And the other part of what makes them so hot is as we were growing up, at least when I was growing up, I wasn't told to go be an electrician or HVAC specialist, right? I was told to go be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, and that would make me a lot of money. But nowadays, the people that used to do these jobs, the HVACs, the electricians, um, a lot of them are boomers. A lot of them were Gen X, and so most of them are retiring. They're moving on, right? They're selling their businesses, and there's just not enough young folk coming in and taking these jobs. So there's a gap there, and so that's why like some of these salaries are in the six figures right now. So if you're on this chat and you're like, like I'm still trying to figure it out, and you're like, hey, I'd be interested in some of that work. They're paying six-figure jobs, and I mean you can go to a trade school and be done in like 8 to 12 weeks, and be making six figures right after that. And it's also a path for small business ownership. So there's those things as well. Did I even answer the second question, or
Uh,
was I rambling? Oh yes. So you did mention
where?
what are places where we should be looking that are non-traditional.
Yes.
So I gave this a lot of thought too. So believe it or not, there are a lot of community groups out there, like apps and platforms that you can join that are posting jobs all the time. So think like Slack channels, Discord meetups, Discord groups. If you're familiar with Discord, believe it or not, there's a lot of groups out there. If you just find it, like they have, like I know there's like a Python Discord channel that you can find. So if you're a developer and you never heard of it before, like join it, because there's a bunch of other Python people in there. Um, there's obviously like Slack channels. So like there's Slack channels for different skills. There's also Slack channels for like specific demographic groups. So like if you're a veteran and you're like you want to be connected to a bunch of veterans, like the chances are they're all going to help you because they're also a veteran, right? They want to see you succeed. So like finding your kind of like your community is really huge, because those will really help you. I mean, those are people that have similar interests, right? Whether it's Discord, whether it's Slack, whether it's Substack, whether it's, um, even a LinkedIn group or Facebook group. But believe it or not, those more community oriented places are where I think, aside from referrals and conferences and more in person stuff, I think that's where most people are finding some of their personalized opportunities to them, versus like just posting blindly on a job board.
Okay. I'm also going to post another platform that I'm actually subscribed to for startup jobs. It's called Well Found.
Yep.
It's called, it was previously called Angel List, because Angel comes from angel investors, but now it's called Well Found. So I'm going to post it on the comments as well. It's for startups. But my next question to you is one that's on everyone's minds. Everyone's been told to upskill, but what skills are you actually seeing that get people hired versus what's noise? And that's a good one that I would love to hear from you, because I get so angry when I see people saying AI is not going to replace you. Someone using AI is going to replace you. So learn AI. So that's such BS. I hate it so much, because what does learn AI mean? What does that even mean? Like, does that mean become a data scientist or an AI engineer? Or like, what does that mean? So I want you to tell me what skills you see that, let's say I take 6 months to learn, that will actually get me something. And yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one without me saying that cliche quote, because it is. I mean, part of it is true.
Don't
I know
say
you don't like
community.
it.
Please don't tell community.
Yeah, no, no, I don't think so. But what I will say is, I think the most important thing that is separating people that actually get the job, and so I'm going to focus on like the people that get the job versus the people that are not getting the job, because I think that's more important than like what skills are on this piece of paper that some recruiter is going to determine whether or not they feel that I'm qualified for this job. It's okay, I've made it through the resume screening, I've made it through these interviews. What's actually going to help me get the offer, which is the most important part, right? Um, because a lot of the times they're probably debating on two or three people, and so they're like, I don't know, maybe this person or that person. But I tell you what it is that is really going to separate you if you make it to the offer stage, and that is going to be your soft skills, your interpersonal skills. Because I tell you right now, if you think that just writing a really dope resume and you've got all the bells and whistles on paper, but once you get there and they're like, damn, he doesn't know how to work with teams. Their critical thinking skills actually suck. Like I like, what did we do? Why did we hire this person? Now, granted, you got the job. It's gonna be hard for them to let you go, but they're gonna have to figure that out and put you on a PIP or something to get you out. But my point is you don't want that, right? You don't want to have a better reputation going into a company right away. But but like those types of things are what AI can never take away from us, right? Is our soft skills, our ability to communicate, our ability to collaborate, to think critically, to lead teams, right? To have empathy, those types of things are what really are going to not just make you stand out in an interview, because those things, they can be assessed in an interview, right? I mean, if the company is good and they have that in their assessment criteria, of course, a lot of the times they'll just ask a lot of questions of like the tech job itself or the job itself, and they never ask you like who you are as a person, which I think is a huge flaw of some recruiters and and some of the hiring managers. But um, Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is really just focusing on the soft skills. And I know it's like it's not probably what most people want to hear, but I think that like a lot of the other skills, like I can tell you which skills are like hot in demand based off what I'm seeing, like for like my technical folks, right? Like right now, if you're a software developer that's focused on Python, on the back end for TypeScript and React on the front end, AWS as a cloud, like you're more than likely getting the job, right? Or like the chances are higher versus somebody who's, doing C sharp and I don't know, Azure, GCP. Like most of the trending like AI native companies are building their platforms on the latter half of what I just said, which is Python, React, TypeScript, that kind of thing. Um, but like same thing with like designers and product people. Like you got to look at the trends. Like designers, I mean, some of them are using low code, no code to build the front end. Like, why spend a month building my code from scratch when I can just like throw it into Lovable and like get at least a mock up, an MVP, and then maybe throw it into Figma and throw a few design things into it to like make it pop more. Um, so like I am getting some clients that are requesting those things. So those are you just got to look at, okay, like if you pull together and you can probably do this depending on whatever industry. I know I was really tech focused just now, but I think here's a strategy that I think you can use no matter what skill you have. And I think that's take like 20 jobs, right? 20 of the hottest jobs right now that you see on a platform. um, Shoot, if you want to throw them all into ChatGPT to help you go faster, then do that. But you can also do it manually. But what are the similar things that they're all saying, right?
Mhm.
And then can you draw from that the skills that are trending, right, from your particular industry? And so I think if you do that exercise, you'll be very surprised when you start seeing all the similarities of what each job is looking for, and that will tell you, oh, okay, well, it's looking for this. I don't have that skill. How do I upskill myself on that? Is it LinkedIn Learning? Is it Coursera? Is it Udemy? Is it some other, like, do I just go on YouTube and watch somebody's video for an hour to get myself up to speed on this? Um, there's so many ways to learn nowadays. You really just got to figure out what is it that's specific to your industry and focus on that. Um, so
So
hopefully that was helpful.
So you do think that, so for example, if I'm a former Fed, let's say I got laid off, but I have all this expertise in this like industry, let's say legal, right? Or some kind of biotech, whatever. Do you think it's worth taking 6 months to learn these things, Python, React, TypeScript, and then combine like my legal experience and skills and say, and I also have this Python and this React? Like, do you think it's worth doing that? Like, do you think that will give you an edge over someone who is a software engineer and has all those skills but doesn't have that legal training and expertise?
It depends on what you're trying to do next. If you're trying to just practice law, that's probably not a good choice. But if you're trying to join, let's say, a startup that's building a law-based AI tool that screens out documents for court, then yeah, hell yeah, like, right, like you're gonna come in with a very different perspective than somebody who's just a software engineer, right? So it really depends on the jobs that you're looking for. Now, what I will say, since we're on the topic of former feds, the one thing that I think we as former feds have that no other person can say is the aside from some startups, not every startup is gritty, but the amount of change and constant change, right, and grit that we have to go through constantly every 2 to 4 years, especially if you've been if you've been a fed for 10, 15, 20 years. You've seen, well, if you're a 20-year vet of working in the federal government, you've seen now 5 presidencies, right? Four or five presidencies, give or take. um you've seen at least 10 transitions happen within the Senate and within Congress, maybe more. um and every single time that happens, they put in new leadership. They bring in a new CTO, they bring in a new secretary, they bring in a new director of whatever the hell it is. Um, and then all of a sudden, what you were doing yesterday now completely changes today. and you got to do that within a win because people's lives are at stake, right? You got people who need Social Security, you got people who need to feed their babies, with through benefits, whatever. And if you get those things wrong, you risk people's lives, right? And so not only are you in a high pressure environment, you also are faced with constant change, both in the policy and in the work itself, but also the leadership. I mean, those are things that you can take to an employer and be like, if you can encapsulate that somehow, maybe the cover letter is the best way to do that, or even on a personal website, because it's hard to do that on a resume, right? Resume, you just want straight bullet points. But like telling your story in a way where it's like, hey, like I've been doing this for a long time, and we've seen this, and this, and change. And I would take that person over somebody who's never experienced a hard day in their life, right? Because if you're working for a very high risk company that's building something novel and intuitive, I don't want somebody who is just going to cakewalk it all the way through this work, right? I want somebody who's like dedicated, mission driven. They can think on their feet. And if like, if excuse my friends, but if shit hits the fan, right? Like, can they pick themselves up and do the work that I've asked them to do, or am I gonna have to then take the resources, my managers or my SMEs, to come help this person, move things along, right? So that those are skills that I think are very hard to build on unless you've been in those environments. So
Yeah. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that if people have questions, that they're posting it on the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to ask two more questions that I hope are very relevant to our audience right now. So I think this is a weird question, but we see there are companies that are laying people off, but simultaneously hiring for different roles. Like, how can we spot these opportunities? Like, are there any tips and tricks that you can share about? Okay, you laid off 1,000 people, but yet you're hiring. Like, I see this all the time. So, like, what can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, so let me just make sure I got your question right. Like, how can job seekers identify those companies that just went through layoffs and see if there's opportunity there for them? Did I interpret that?
Yeah.
Well, the first one, if you want to put this in the chat, is there is actually a layoffs tracker out there, believe it or not. It is a self-funded, I don't know who the guy is, but it's called layoffs.fyi. So if you've never heard of it, this is like, first of all, I'm actually mad that I'm giving this out now, because if you're a recruiter on here, I'm watching you. May the best person win on snatching talent. But it's actually what I use to find people, right? So like, if you go to layoffs.fyi, it's a constant tracker. I don't know what automation he has set up. I think he actually pulls from articles that are posted out there in the ether of the internet. And it tells you, hey, Meta just laid off 10,000 people. Oh, snap. All right, I'm a recruiter. Let me go talk to these 10,000 people that just got laid off, because now they might want a job. So like, but on the flip side, right, if I'm a job seeker, I'm gonna go to there and I'm gonna say, oh, okay, well, like, this company just laid off people. I wonder, let me go check the job boards and see what, like, you can probably find out through that, like, what types of skills. And obviously, like, as a recruiter, I have other like recruiting tools that I use to find people. So if you're a regular job seeker, you may not have those tools to then like figure out what skills actually got let go. But you could probably infer that through like LinkedIn or through other sources, maybe articles. Some articles like TechCrunch and Crunchbase, some of those they'll say like, Forbes, it'd be like, well, they just let go of 1,000 people and half of them were developers. Okay, cool. Like, what's their tech stack? Oh, they were a Python shop. Okay, cool. I'm a Python person. I wonder if they got Python jobs open. So then you go to their website and see if, did they repost some jobs that maybe they let go of some people, because that does happen. But yeah, I mean, there's different ways but I would say like that is like a very big secret. So if you were on here, you kind of got a little lucky to hear that. But or if you're tuning in later, right? I guess for the viewers that watch this later, but um, yeah, I mean, it's really just sticking close, especially if there's a company that you really want to work for. It sucks sometimes, but it's like, well, what are the chances that they're gonna lay me off if I start working there? I think you just got to really, figure out, are they roles that can be repurposed or replaced by something else, and like, what was the reason behind that, right? I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to reach out to somebody who was laid off. I mean, that might be a little insensitive, but um, there's different ways. It depends on what your strategy is and how you want to get in front of those people. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's probably I guess my long-winded comment to that.
Okay. All right. I have one last question for you, and then I'll close with the question that we started with: who the hell is hiring? But my last question for you is,
Mhm.
if someone's been job searching for more than 6 months with no luck,
Mm,
what is the harsh truth that they need to hear? And what should they do differently starting tomorrow?
mm.
I hope this is a question that everyone can resonate with. I hope here, um, has been looking for jobs for more than 6 months. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll lead with this as somebody who was in that position. Not, I wouldn't say like 6 months, but I kind of got tired of it pretty quickly, and I was like, why not just do this shit myself, right? And that is, now is a good time to be a business owner. Honestly, I think building your own thing is probably the quickest path to wealth versus like working for corporate or working for somebody. But like, if you haven't ever considered it and you have a skill or a type of job that can be either turned into some sort of fractional consulting or like small business, it never hurts to just have an LLC. And if you want to build on it and you want to build a brand and like really try to find clients or like whatever, do that. But worst case scenario, you can still look for a job, get hired full time, and do some consulting work on the side, or do some, even if it's like, it doesn't have to be consulting. It could be like, an e-commerce shop or something on Amazon, or something on Etsy, or like selling stuff on Poshmark. I don't know. You figure it out, right? Do a YouTube or a podcast, whatever is excites you. But I think like building that for when there are seasons of unemployment, because if you've been laid off once, it could happen again, right? And so you don't want to be stuck in another position where you're like, man, now I got to go back on the job search. It's going to take me another 6 to 12 months to find something. But if you have an LLC, or if you have something that's like, well, I was making a little bit of pocket change here while I was, full time employed. Now you can go back while you're unemployed, still look for a job, and maybe make some additional money on the side. Hopefully, right? Kick that back up or whatever. Maybe you were still doing it, and it was only making you like a few $1,000s here or there. But if you put some energy behind it, it'll make you a few thousand, like tens of thousands of dollars. Um, then I think that is my first response to anybody. It doesn't hurt. Look at your local laws. What does it take to start an LLC? And just have it, right? Because it doesn't hurt you later. Like, if from an accounting IRS standpoint, like, if you didn't make any money out of it, whatever, no harm, no foul. Maybe a couple $100 I think that you got to do like for a yearly filing, but other than that, like, if you made a couple thousand, great. Like, put some extra money in your pocket. But I mean, the harsh reality is, if you're not doing that and you're not bringing any income, you have to find ways to make income, right? So whether that's working at a grocery store, or working at a manufacturing plant, or something that will bring you some income, um, like, you have to do that. Still job search, still do that. Or if you're just like not even feel it no more, you're not passionate about it, then career switch, pivot. If you have the opportunity to do that, right? I know not everybody can do that. I'm very empathetic to that, and I'll call that out. But there are grants out there. There are organizations, nonprofits that upskill and train people on different careers, so that they don't feel like they're pigeonholed into one area, and they'll offer financial support. So I guess my long-winded response here is that only you can determine what that wall is, right? And so And yes, LinkedIn user here,
Mhm.
go out, go talk to people. If you're sitting at home moping, that's not going to help you. Nobody's going to come and save you. You got to go save yourself. So, go to a networking event, go to a conference if you have extra money in your back pocket to go. Um, Join meetup groups, find communities that have similar interests as you and connect with real people. Because chances are they may help you grow your business if you're starting one, or put you in contact with somebody who's hiring. You just never know. So you know again, you'll know when you hit that wall and when you hit that point. And if you do, then make that tough decision. But if you still got some gas in the tank, um, keep pushing. Like don't just give up. It will always be tough, but we'll get through it. So
Okay, well, thank you. And we only have 4 minutes left, so I'm gonna reiterate what we started with, which is Jesus, if you have anything to add, who the hell is hiring? Like, name companies, name industries,
yeah,
who the hell is hiring?
I'll tell you, I'm hiring. I do have some startups I'm recruiting for right now. So if you are a
Okay.
software engineer, I'll be doing some consulting here in the near future. I won't reveal that quite yet because it's still in the works. But when that does happen, product design, data scientists, that's mostly what I spend my time recruiting for. So if any of those fit your criteria, let me know. But I will say, like, if you haven't found a recruiter, find one. Like, find one that you trust, that keeps it real with you, but just have somebody in your back pocket that can look for you as well, not just you yourself. I know that there's this negative connotation around recruiters, and like we've done it to ourselves. And so I don't blame you if you have like this perspective like recruiters suck. And I'm not talking about like corporate recruiters. I'm talking about a staffing agency. Find one that is reputable, and has really good recruiters. You'll know off that first phone call if it's a 19, 20-year-old that just graduated from college and is like, this is their first job out of college, or if they've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years and they love what they do. You'll know, and connect yourself to those people. Um, no harm, no foul to my younger recruiters, but if they can show it and they have the grit and they're willing to work for you, then work with them. But if not, you need to find seasoned, tenured recruiters that can actually land you interviews and get you the job. So don't knock that. Definitely find yourself one. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm going to be very biased towards startups and nonprofits right now too. There's a lot of that. Like, if you're a government person, a lot of that work has now been shifted into the private sector or to nonprofits or NGOs. So if you're a former government employee, like, look at nonprofits, look at social impact type of opportunities and organizations that still want to make a change, but they can do it on their own terms, not based off what the government can do. And for my non-government people that are in the tech space, even if you're not in the tech space but want to get aligned to the tech space, um, like, I think startups are a little bit less. The reason I push them right now is because I think that they're a little bit less affected by political and economic factors that are impacting the bigger companies, right? So, like, I mean, we've seen it on the news, like the Teslas, the Googles, that, like, they're all in somebody's back pocket. So, and like, if something happens in the globe and like tariffs hit, for example, then they got to lay off people. So, whereas a startup, they only got 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, maybe a dozen. And there's thousands of startups out there. So you kind of do the math. Um, they don't feel that same pressure, not when they're making 50 million a year, building an AI native company, right? So that's where I would steer people. You can look at builtin.com. Actually, that's another one I didn't mention earlier. um, Builtin.com they actually post a lot of startup jobs there as well, believe it or not. And there's a few recruiter marketplaces out there as well, so you'll come across them as they come out. But yeah, those are some bits of advice that I would give to viewers.
Okay, can you repeat that? Built in? Is it like
Built in, yeah, BUILTIN.com.
Okay, I'm posting it in the comments. Okay, we are at time. So thank you so much, Jesus, for spending your time with us and for sharing your wisdom and your experience. I hope this was helpful to everyone, and I hope that we all eventually get hired and find jobs. And thank you. And I'll make sure that this conversation is shared with people who couldn't make it. So thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.